At one point or another, a lot of people go through some level of depression. As the years go on, it's becoming more and more common and more prevalent for people to deal with depression, including adolescent youth. For my speech, I will be discussing the prevalence of depression within today's youth. My credibility, if you could say I have any in the subject, would be that as a youth, I went through some level of depression a couple different times throughout my childhood, through different experiences that I'd gone through and what I had dealt with growing up. And as I got older, looking back on that, I see how important it is and I see how important it is to talk about. So for my speech, my main points will be some of the way, not all, but some of the ways that depression can develop within youth. And then I will also be discussing what it can look like. So in the article, Childhood Adversity in Youth, Influence of Gender and Pubertal Status, the authors Randolph and Flynn theorized that there are three models that could explain depression caused by childhood adversity. One model would be the stress amplification model, which would state that the youth within a youth with a history of adversity would experience more depression than those who do not experience any adversity when exposed to stress. So the model says that with this, when someone that has dealt with so much as a child, and they go through stress, it's going to affect them almost in a way of PTSD. The second model would be the stress sensitization model, which states that adversity increases the possibility to experience depression with only mild stress. This is like the first, but worse. Instead of a severe stressor, this model says that it only takes something very slight, very minuscule to cause it. The last model would be the stress inoculation model, which states that individuals that underwent adversity would experience less depression. In other words, they became numb to it. They've experienced the adversity, they experienced it as a child, so when they're stressed, they don't really show much emotion. In my second point, in the article Testing Specificity, Associations of Stress and Coping with Symptoms of Anxiety and Depression in Youth, it stated that depression in a child could come from the constant exposure to stress in the home stemming from depression in the parents. Now this I can say I have dealt with. My mother has had depression for a number of years, and I can say that, like the article states, that the lack of parental positivity and sometimes the unpredictable situations, it can cause the child to retreat. And sometimes that did happen. Sometimes it was hard for her to stay positive. It was hard for her to get herself going, and so I kind of just sometimes had to take that and just, however it made me feel, I kind of didn't talk about it. And a lot of times, that's what would cause my episodes of depression. When it comes to the differences in depression with adolescents, there's a slight difference in male and female. Now, I'm not going to go too far into it, but because of different hormonal mechanisms and a faster rate of maturing, it is more common for adolescent females to experience greater levels of depression than adolescent males. So, what would depression look like in a child or adolescent, a teenager? When dealing with depression in kids, it can look like a disinterest in usual activities, appetite changes, weight changes, either decrease or increase, sleep problems, fatigue, and honestly a feeling of worthlessness. It's also stated in the article that the most common symptom is irritability, and a lot of times younger kids don't know how to express their feelings, their feeling of depression, and they get angry. That's how they express it. This is stated in the article, Don't Overlook Depression in Youth. Now, what kind of disorders can happen and how can it look and what's the severity. In the article Depression in Children and Adolescents, there's a chart that lists mood disorders that are most possible when dealing with this, ranging from a low to high severity. And that would be sadness variation, bereavement, sadness problem. Sadness problem is where medication would start to be introduced. Adjustment disorder with a depressed mood, major depressive disorder, and then varying levels of bipolar disorder, which that can range in different severities and different levels and types of medication that's needed. So, in my closing, I want to reiterate that the main things to take away from this are: how is depression in youth caused, and what does it look like? And after this speech, I hope you were able to learn a little bit more about depression in youth and the importance of it.